5-Minute Fridays, where we cover tech concepts in about 5 minutes. Today we're going to go into Terraform and how to run Docker containers locally. This is meant as a very basic, simple introduction to Terraform, which is a configuration language to help provision, codify, and version control your infrastructure. A few things that we're going to need to get started today is Docker and Terraform and some sort of IDE. I prefer VS Code. That's up to you on what you want to use. If you need these download links, I will put this in the bottom along with if you need the repo. So once you have that all installed, let's just go ahead and hop over to our code and start looking at this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new directory, and I'm just going to call it Terraform Docker local demo. And then inside this, we're going to want to create a new file called MainTF. And while we're here, let's just dive into this a little bit quicker. What is the main.tf file? This is a file that you'll find in most all Terraform repos or projects that they're working in. It could be named something else, but this file will basically contain all of the configuration needed to run the Terraform. So it's basically a configuration for the setup of your workspace. To start off with, we're going to go ahead and start off with a provider, which is Docker. And we're going to leave it just like that. You don't actually need this for going into a demo locally like this, but we will use it just to touch on providers because that's what base Terraform is on. So you want to actually look at it, the different types of providers that you can get, AWS, Google Cloud, Docker, anything you could think of out there. It basically allows you to interact with some sort of API out there to create resources. This is how Terraform translates everything for you. So we're going to use Docker locally today. And then the next thing that we want to go into is we are going to go into resources. So we need to create a resource for a Docker image. And we're going to name this resource BusyBox. The name of the Docker image that we are going to want to pull here is BusyBox. And then I'm just going to add a keep locally true, which will keep the Docker container on whatever your host is so you don't have to continually re-download it. Next, we need to make a Docker container from that image. So we're going to do another resource called Docker container. We'll also call this BusyBox. This is the name of the resource. Name, we'll just call it BusyBox. The image we want to use is the one that we created above this, so we're going to actually call it using Terraform, which is going to be done by using Docker image dot busybox.latest, and that latest is just going to have it so that it pulls the latest Docker image that it can. So this Docker image and BusyBox is this resource right here, resource Docker image BusyBox. Next, I'm just going to add in a command to basically keep the Docker container running, just for the sake of this demo. Now we can just take a look in our terminal down here, or if you need to, open it up in a different terminal window. And the first thing that we are going to do in here is use a command called Terraform init, and we'll go into these commands in just a second. Terraform init. And you can see that it's basically initializing the back end and then looking for those providers. And since we added the provider Docker up here, it went and downloaded the provider for Docker. Basically, that initialized our workspace and set it up with any of the needed providers to make anything work. Now, just real quick, let's hop back over to my web browser. And we're going to go ahead and talk about what those commands that are mostly used in Terraform. Terraform init is what we just went over, which will initialize and set up the workspace that it's in. Terraform plan, which we're about to run, will run a plan which basically pulls the state and checks for any changes with your code, and then it'll report out the actions it would perform if you did an apply. Terraform apply will actually run all the code that you have written, and that's what's going to apply and make all of your resources. You can always follow along on this on opsmonkeys.com, and that should work out good for you. And we'll just get back into the code and get this over with and get you creating your first resource. So let's jump back over here, and we're going to do exactly that. We're going to do a Terraform plan. And we can see if we look here, it lets you know that the little plus symbol means that it wants to create these resources. And it's going to create this Docker container called BusyBox. And it's going to create this Docker image called BusyBox. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and do a apply. Once you run Terraform apply, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to perform these actions? Just simply answer yes. And there you go. It says that it's applied, it's already done, so let's just double check. If you go and type docker ps, you will now see that we have a BusyBox container running the command that we put it in. Alright, that's it. You've provisioned your first infrastructure with Terraform. Way to go, congratulations, and I hope you can continue on with this. We're going to go ahead and teach you one last quick command, which is Terraform destroy. And this does exactly what you think it would do. It's going to take anything that you had in code and destroy it. It will double check with you, just make sure, and we can see right here, 2 to destroy. Now they're destroyed, and if we do a docker ps, you will see it's no longer running.